What do you think is the main thing that's going wrong for Real Madrid at the moment?
Two things. I think Xabi Alonso is learning very quickly in terms of why the Real Madrid hot seat is the hardest hot seat in world football. Because you're not just managing, and I'm going to echo in terms of what Thierry said, because we've said it here on Scoreline weeks ago. You're not just managing typical players, you're not just doing coaching, you're actually managing egos. Because you need to recognise that every single one of those players that's in that Real Madrid changing room are the best players for their nation, arguably the standout player in terms of throughout their trajectory. Not just in terms of youth team, not just coming into the previous clubs they were at. No, they've come to Real Madrid with a certain standard and expectation in terms of wanting to play. And what you have to do in terms of inside of that is manage all 25 personalities. And that's the hardest part in terms of as a manager. You can do all the coaching, have all of the tactics, have all the breakdowns you want. And his excellence should never be questioned, because what he's done at Bayer Leverkusen is second to none. The invincible season will always stand alone as one of the greatest achievements, especially in the Bundesliga. But it's a completely different animal when you take on Real Madrid. And especially when you're massaging so many egos. We've seen the spells from Vinny, and now you can feel like when I look at the highlights, I'm seeing an application problem regarding the other players in that changing room.
Let's get the latest from Madrid. Speak to our Spanish correspondent, Phil Kitromilides, who joins us live on the show now. Phil, great to see you. This is sort of a fast-moving story. There were some, speculation, particularly on social media, that potentially, if Xabi Alonso and Real Madrid lost that game against Manchester City, he might lose his job. He is still, as I believe, right now, the Real Madrid manager. Has that situation changed? What is the latest as we stand here going into the weekend?
Yeah, Adam, it is a bit of a fluid situation. I think that's a good way of putting it, because after that game against Manchester City, there was a meeting, and there were some members of the Real Madrid hierarchy who were favourable to the idea of getting rid of Xabi Alonso. He is still there, and on Thursday we were hearing from the club that actually, we're going to stick with him, right, until the sort of, at least the Spanish Super Cup, see what happens. But in the last 24 hours or so, a different story has emerged, and there's suggestions that Xabi Alonso isn't going to continue whatever happens in these last three games of the year. They've got Alaves away at the weekend, they've got a lower league team in the cup midweek, and they've got Sevilla at home. Those are the last three games of the year. What we're hearing now is that even if Xabi Alonso wins those last three games, it might not be enough to save his job, because it's not just the team aren't winning, it's how they're playing. And there is a feeling that Xabi Alonso can't turn this around. He is not the guy to turn this around.
Phil, I want to stay on that point really quickly, because how quickly do Real Madrid hierarchy expect you to implement a style? If we're just talking about the basis in terms of as a new manager, integrating new talent, and also, of course, managing those personalities, why is it they expected him to just kick the game off straight away in terms of wanting to, implement what he did at Bayer Leverkusen?
Yeah, I mean, Jaydee, it's Real Madrid and the standards are just insanely high. I mean, if you look at the table, I had someone say to me, they're only 4 points behind Barcelona. I said, 4 points behind Barcelona is absolute disaster for Real Madrid. It's not like a normal club. The standards are so insanely high. In terms of implementing a new style of football, I think we kind of saw that at the start of the season. We saw it at the Club World Cup when he took over, and we saw it the first few games of the season. Real Madrid not playing exceptionally eye-catching football in terms of beautiful moves or anything, but they looked a little bit more organised. They certainly were defending higher up the pitch. They certainly were pressing higher up the pitch and winning the ball back higher up the pitch, which is what Xabi Alonso wanted. And that's kind of fallen away in the last few games. I was checking the stats, and the first 5 games of the season, they were defending 3 meters higher up the pitch than they have been the last 5 games. So they've definitely taken a step forward, doing what the manager wanted to. And in the last 5 games, they've slunk back and dropped deeper. And that is not what the manager wants. Whether it is a question of certain players not necessarily buying into the philosophy, certain players not necessarily doing what the manager wants. There is certainly suggestions that that is the case. But yeah, I think he started okay, and it's just fallen away so quickly. Start of November, they were 5 points clear at the top of the table, and here we are now in the second week of December talking about him potentially losing his job any day now. It's remarkable.
Phil, you used the phrase "not a normal club" just there, and it is also not a normal club in terms of the relationship between the media in Madrid and the team itself, and that relationship with the manager, the hierarchy, the players. You've obviously lived in the city, you've covered Spanish football for a long time. Can you explain just how important that relationship is and how much power the media has over the manager of Real Madrid?
It's a complex relationship that exists here, Adam, between the media in Real Madrid and the hierarchy at the club as well. Let me put it like this. Somebody came out last night on Spanish radio and said Xabi Alonso might not be manager in January, whatever happens. And that person is very well connected to the hierarchy of Real Madrid. So you know that certain people, when they speak, and these are journalists on the radio or in the written press, when they speak, it's not just them giving their opinion, it is the opinion coming basically from the hierarchy of Real Madrid. There are quite a few journalists here that are basically voice pieces for the Real Madrid president and the board. So you read in between the lines and you see. So when I heard that being said on the radio last night, I started speaking to people that I know and getting tapping up some sources and contacts within the club. And what I got from people within the club was, yeah, it's a real shame, man. I really don't understand, but it does look like he's going. So in terms of the media, the pressure is relentless on Real Madrid, and it's because the focus. You've got to remember that over half the people in this country support either Real Madrid or Barcelona. It's not like in other countries. It's not like in England where you've got all these different massive clubs with followings and almost equal coverage given to the big 6 or 7 clubs. Here, it's Real Madrid and Barcelona absolutely dominating, and in the city of Madrid, Atletico are a huge club, and I didn't realize how huge they were till I actually moved here. Massive club, but they're still dwarfed by Real Madrid. Real Madrid is everything in this city. They are all-encompassing. You feel it absolutely everywhere, and particularly if you're reading the newspapers every day.
Phil, I've got a two-part question for you. When you spoke to those sources, and this is just me tapping into your contact book for a second, do you feel like a lot of the responsibility or the words that you were hearing was the direction was pointed at Xabi Alonso in terms of where their decline has been, or do you feel like a lot of the responsibility is still on the players for where they have been in terms of so far?
Yeah, I mean, what I was hearing was, if you get rid of Xabi Alonso now, who are you going to bring in? Like, realistically, who is going to come in and be able to not just get a reaction, but then implement a plan for the rest of the season and beyond? The suggestions that Jurgen Klopp is being looked at. Jurgen Klopp, that's not going to work. If Xabi Alonso isn't going to work, you think Jurgen Klopp's going to come in and suddenly get everybody running and buying into this high pressing? That's not going to work. Alvaro Arbeloa has been manager of the B team for a couple of months. Zinedine Zidane doesn't want it. Santiago Solari isn't really a manager. He just works at the club. So who are you going to bring in to replace Xabi Alonso? That was one of the things that I got from people inside. And it's not just Xabi Alonso, and obviously he might have committed some errors. I don't think he's committed too many footballing errors. The suggestions is that he doesn't make the right substitutes. He always goes to the same substitutes. He isn't necessarily very flexible. I'm not sure I buy into that. I think a lot of the culpability here is on the players. And also, let's not forget that the club, in the summer, there was a glaring hole in the middle of midfield for Real Madrid, and there was someone absolutely perfect that they could have got there. Martin Zubimendi was available, but 65 million euros, Real Madrid could have bought him. Xabi Alonso wanted them to buy him, and he was told, no, we're not going to get him. Just make do with what you've got in the centre of midfield. It's not all down to Real Madrid not having Martin Zubimendi, the problems that they have at the moment. Having someone like that would help with the creation of play, and that is a big problem that we've seen in the last few weeks. So when you're in a situation like this, there's culpability everywhere. The players, the manager, and the club, they all bear part of the responsibility here. But what I'm getting the sense of here from fans, and speaking to people who are fans who are actually members of Real Madrid, they're angry with the players. They're angry with the players for not showing enough fight, enough spirit, enough attitude, particularly in that defeat to Celta Vigo, which we just saw some of the highlights a couple of minutes ago. They didn't start running in that game until they were 1-0 down after 70 minutes, and that's not acceptable for Real Madrid fans.
What's your inclination, Phil? Do you think that they do have the ability, whether they've got Xabi Alonso as the manager or if they do decide to get rid of him after these 3 games, can they come back and win a trophy this season, or is this going to be another lost season for Real Madrid and they're not going to be able to overturn it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, if the question is, can they win a trophy? In theory, they should be able to win a trophy. But can they play much better or much different to how they're playing now? I'm not sure they can. Like, the structure of the team, it's a very unbalanced team. And there's a phrase in Spanish which is rather difficult to translate in English, and it's, no juega a nada. Like, they don't play anything. They don't create any football, this team. And you watch them, and there really isn't that spark, creativity, ingenuity, and the structure of the side is all wrong, and it's missing that deep line playmaker, as I mentioned, and too many people want to play on the left, etc. So, having said all that, there's brilliant individuals. You've got the best goalkeeper in the world. You've got the best striker in the world. If those two are at their best form, and some individuals raise their game a little bit, yeah, they can win a trophy, yes. But I'm not sure, with the players at his disposal right now, can Xabi Alonso get them playing any differently? That's where I have my doubts, and they're not going to go into the January transfer window. They very rarely do, Real Madrid. So I think this is it between now and the end of the season, and yeah, it could be a long old season for Real Madrid.
Phil, we'll have to wait and see. Great insight as always. It will be very, very interesting to see what happens against Alaves at the weekend. Lose that game, and I'd be a bit worried if I was Xabi Alonso.